What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Married at First Sight Australia, Season 9, Episode 14. So, y'all, we have two new couples, and I'm like, wow. That's a lot of couples because we lost one, which was Holly and Andrew, and now we have two. I thought if we lost one, we'd get one, but we got two for the price of one. So the new couple, one of the new couples, is Kate and Matt. So let's talk about Kate first. Kate is 39 years old, no children, never been married. In fact, she's never even had a boyfriend. She says that she's never been in a relationship and she's never experienced love. She says in high school, the boys always called her ugly. No one ever called her their girlfriend. She's a clinical nutritionist. She lives with her twin sister. Even though she lives with her twin, she says that she always feels alone because she doesn't have a partner in life. She stopped believing that she could ever find love. And so her story, her background is like extremely sad. But when you look at her, you wouldn't think that she would have all these issues because she's a fairly decent looking woman. She is not unattractive by any stretch of the imagination. I don't understand why she's struggling unless she's just picking the wrong guys. Now, if she's attracted to a certain kind of guy who may not be attracted to a girl like her, then it's not because of any type of, physical issues or whatever. It's just that she's attracted to the wrong kind of guy. Um, but maybe she was that ugly duckling that turned into a swan because she is not unattractive. She is not ugly. She's she has a beautiful body. She has a pretty face. She's got like captivating green eyes. I don't understand why she's been struggling like this. Either her personality is, garbage once the people get to know her. Once a man gets to know her, her personality is absolutely trash, or she's just going for the wrong guys. Because there are some guys, when you look at them, you can kind of get an idea of the kind of girls that they would go out with. And maybe she's just too normal for guys like that. I don't know what the deal is, but yeah. So, Matt is 39 years old. He really wants to be a father, have children of his own. He was married previously, I think for about 7 or 8 years, and they never have their own children. They struggled with fertility, so they went through the IVF process, and that was unsuccessful for them. So then they decided to foster children. They were married for 8 years. Now they're divorced, and he just wants, a very like your typical love story. That's all he wants for himself. So on their day of their wedding, um, the first people to arrive at their wedding is some of the other couples in the experiment. I was like, oh, I like this. I like this a lot. Yeah, this is nice. So I forgot which couple. It was definitely Demonica and Jack. And I don't remember who the other couples were. And the reason why I remember Demonica and Jack is because they made a fool of themselves at the reception. So when Kate shows up in her wedding gown, I mean, I thought she looked absolutely gorgeous. That dress fit her like a glove. I thought she looked absolutely breathtaking. When they're at the altar, he notices how pretty she is, and he compliments her, and he says that he's completely over the moon. He says that he got lost in her eyes, y'all. He got lost in her eyes. Um, in his vows, he mentions that he was previously married, which I thought that was a good way of letting her know that he's divorced. It's not going to be an awkward conversation later. He's telling her up front. And she said that, well, okay, so while he's absolutely smitten with her and just finds her to be absolutely gorgeous, it's not like that with her and how she feels about him. She says that physically, he's really not her type. And to me, he looked like an average guy. He looked like a dad, like someone who has a dad bod. Just like an average looking guy. He wasn't like the most handsome man in the world, but he wasn't like the least handsome man in the world. He just looked like an average guy. He looked normal to me. I can see a woman finding him attractive, definitely. So I don't, yeah, but she didn't see it. She's like, he's not really what I would go for. Her issue was her biggest insecurity about this whole process was that the guy might not like her. She never once considered that she might not like the guy. And so that's what she's struggling with right now. And she's realizing, okay, he's really into me, but I'm not that into him. So, like I said before, I mean, as soon as he saw her, he was attracted to her. So her whole story about how nobody wants her, she's never been in love, nobody wants to call her their girlfriend, nobody wants to be in a relationship with her. I'm beginning to think that she's just picking the absolute wrong type of men. So they'd have a photo shoot. It's extremely awkward because he's very, very touchy feely. He is constantly showering her with compliments, and it's making her feel very, very uncomfortable because they just met. Like he's seriously invading her personal space, how close he is with her. It's just awful. At one point, he apologizes for his breath because he said that he had chicken twisties or chicken something. And I'm thinking to myself, that's absolutely disgusting. That's absolutely disgusting. Why are you calling attention to your questionable breath? Why are you doing that? So she I think there was a time when he kissed her during the photo shoot, and she looked disgusted. She really did. She was trying to hide it, but I could see it. I could see it through whatever mask she was trying to put up that she felt disgusted with him kissing her. And I thought she was going to throw up. Like I said, he was constantly complimenting her. And it was just, he was putting it on really, really, really thick. It's like, okay, look, she gets it. You can tell her she's beautiful, one, maybe three times max, but this constant, telling her every other second that she's beautiful, she's gorgeous, wow, your eyes, wow, I think it's just too much. It was just too much. And it was beginning to annoy her. So at the reception, Kate is really struggling with the lack of attraction. She says that he's doing all the right things that she would want him to do, but she just doesn't feel any kind of spark at all. Now, at the dinner party or at the dinner table, at the reception, we have Demonica and Jack there, as well as a few of the other couples. They split the couples, so some of them went to this wedding and the others went to the other wedding. So Demonica gives them advice about, taking the time to really learn each other. And then she mentions a few of Jack's faults. Like I forgot what she said. She said something that he does around the house that kind of gets on her nerves. And, Jack didn't like that. He didn't like that at all. His whole expression completely changed. And so Demonica looks over at him and she could see that his whole demeanor had completely changed after she had, was giving her advice and talking about some of his shortcomings. And so she looks at him and she says, "Is it too much? Did I do too much?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so Matt is like, yeah. So I was just like, Demonica, what are you doing? Why do you have to say something negative about your husband to, this couple that you don't even know? What are you doing? Anyways, moving on from that because we're going to get more into Demonica and Jack later. So when Matt mentions to the group that he was a foster parent, this kind of did something to Kate. And so she realized, for him to do something like that, he must have a really kind heart. So that kind of warmed her up just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit to him. So when they have their one-on-one conversation, they move away from everybody else to talk privately alone. And he's practically sitting on her lap. He's sitting so close to her. And they're on completely different pages as far as the whole touchy-feely thing. And she basically tells him that she's just not that comfortable. She's like, we really don't know each other. So this whole touchy-feely thing, I'm just not, it's a little bit too much for me. And she mentioned that she was cold. And I think they were outside. So she mentioned that she was cold. And I was surprised that for someone who was as attentive as he was portraying himself to be, as attracted as he was acting towards her, he was really attracted to her, he was really concerned about her. When she mentioned that she was cold, he didn't even bother to give her his jacket. And I noticed that. Moving on. The other couple that we're meeting in this episode is Caroline and Dion. So Caroline is 34 years old. She was born and raised in Brazil. She had a Her father died, I think, when her mom was pregnant with her, so she never got to meet her dad. And she herself ended up pregnant at the age of 15. So she wanted a better life for herself and her son. So she moved to Australia, started her own business. What she does is she has a company, an online company, where she loans out designer handbags to people. And I was like, that's clever. That's pretty clever for her to do that. So if someone wants to have like a really, high end handbag to wear at an event, but they don't want to buy one, they can borrow it from her for a price. And so that's what she does. And I thought that was really clever. Even though she has a child who is now 16 years old and she herself is only 34, she is willing to have more children if that's, something that her and her husband want to do. So she is very open to having more children. Dion is 34 years old. He's a property developer. He is really into material things because he talked about his watch. He talked about his car. He talked about all this material things that he has. And he is someone that is very flashy with his wealth. Yeah, he's kind of flashy with his wealth. And to me, he looks a lot like, what's that comedian's name? I think his name is Rob Schneider. I think he reminds me of Rob Schneider. So, he does appear to be kind of short, and he also wants to have children as well. So on the day of their wedding, we see some of the couples from the experiment attending the wedding, and Caroline is about 2 to 3 hours behind, y'all. She's 2 to 3 hours late. She had these people waiting there, including her groom, for 2 to 3 hours. And let me tell you why. The makeup artist came to do her makeup and her hair, and I guess when the makeup artist was done, she didn't like it. So I'm not sure exactly why she didn't tell the makeup artist that she didn't like it. At one point, she did say something about the lashes, I think. And the makeup artist said, well, let's wait until, we're completely done, and then we can start fixing what needs to be fixed. So I don't know what happened to that. The makeup artist did her makeup and her hair. Oh, I mean, was it? No, the makeup artist did her makeup, and I guess someone else did her hair. When everybody left, she didn't like it. So she completely undid everything. She scrubbed the makeup off her face. She took down her hair, and she redid everything herself. And this took 2 to 3 hours. I could not believe it. And she looked fine. So, and I understand this is her wedding day and she wants to feel confident and she wants to feel beautiful. Like, I totally get all of that. But girl, there are people waiting. You have to also be considerate of that. She looked fine. I don't understand why she just didn't go out with what she had originally. But, it's all about, I guess, how the bride feels about herself. And if she felt beautiful, she would, be more confident with herself and she would have, a better time. But having people waiting for 2 to 3 hours, that's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. So, the guests are getting very antsy. They're constantly looking at their watches, and finally she arrives. So Dion says that she's absolutely stunning, beautiful eyes, beautiful teeth. And I looked at his teeth. His teeth look like veneers to me, but I wasn't sure. She notices how blue his eyes are, and he does. He does have very striking blue eyes. Her dress was very beautiful. So as they walk away after they exchange their vows and they're walking back down the aisle, she makes a comment about his height. She's like, how tall are you? And he said, I'm 5'7" or something like that. And she says, oh, you seem pretty short. And then he says, but I'm tall when I'm standing on my wallet. And I'm like, Lord have mercy. Here we go. So when they have their one-on-one conversation, just the two, let's see. At the reception, she tells him that she really does appreciate how patient he was for waiting for her for 2 to 3 hours, and she said that she can be a bit of a diva, and so she's very apprehensive about telling him about her son. So while they're trying to get to know each other at the reception, his friends and her friends are sitting at the same table and they're communicating with one another, and so her friends tell his friends that she has a child, and so they're like kind of shocked about that because she doesn't look like someone who would have a kid who's 16 years old. So I think the friends hinted at him or gave him some type of a hint or something that maybe she has something, very important to tell him. Because when they had their one-on-one, he kind of was like, do you have something to tell me, or is there something else that I need to know about you? And that's when she says to him that she does have a child. And he was definitely shocked, because she doesn't look like she would have a kid at all, let alone a kid that's 16 years old. She looks really, really young, younger than her age. She just seems like a 20 something year old, young lady who's, just out there to have fun. So it really took him by surprise that she had a child. But, he was like, you know what, that's no problem. That's no issue. I'm not going to hold that against her. And he's totally okay with that. She mentioned that she mentioned that she was cold. And Rob Schneider looking guy took off his jacket and gave it to her to keep her warm. And that's what needs to be done. So he's okay with her having a kid. He's like, you know what, we'll get through it. No big deal. We'll see what it do. So that is Carolina and Dion. Now I hope Dion is not going to be constantly talking about his wealth, his money. I don't know. I hope that's not going to be like a thing for him, because that's very unattractive. But maybe she won't mind, because, maybe she doesn't, I don't know. Let's just see how that works out. I don't know about the attraction that she has for him. I don't think she really said how she felt about him, other than his blue eyes. Moving on. Let's get into Demonica and Jack and how they acted a complete fool at Kate and Matt's wedding. So Demonica tells everyone that after they had that little conversation, where she talked about, the things about him that kind of irritate her, and he felt some kind of way about that. She ain't done. She's not done yet. So at some point during the dinner at Kate and Matt's wedding, she says that Jack has never brought her coffee in bed. Okay, why would you even talk about this? And so Jack says, I did do that once, but you were already out on the balcony. Olivia and Jackson, they're also there at the dinner. And Olivia says, well, Jackson doesn't even drink coffee, and he brings me coffee in bed. Olivia, shut the hell up. Like, why are you talking about this? Why are you even talking about? Why would you say something like that? You clearly see that Demonica and Jack are struggling with something. There's something going on there. You clearly see that. And so instead of you being supportive and sympathetic, you want to talk about how great your relationship is going, which tells me, Olivia, that maybe your relationship isn't going that great at all. If you feel the need to rub it in other people's faces that you and Jack, have the ideal relationship. So, Demonica looks at Jack and says, so what's your excuse? Because, after she heard what Olivia said, she goes, so what's your excuse? And Jack tells her that she's been throwing digs at him like all day long, or at least that whole night. And he's been talking very positively about her. And he's like, I don't understand why you always present me in a negative light, and I'm always presenting you in a positive light. Like, what's tea with that? And so she says that it's been really hard for her, and that they need to show more compassion towards one another. So she doesn't even apologize. She doesn't even reflect on what he was saying. He tells her, you've been saying negative things about me, but I've only said, the most positive things about you. She doesn't even take that in. Okay, she just directly goes into defensive mode and says that it's been really hard, and that they need to show compassion towards one another. Where did he lack compassion towards you, Demonica? So Jack says that she never shows any compassion towards him. He says that she only talks negative things about him. And she still is not accepting of that. She's still not apologetic about it. And so then he kind of gives up. He's frustrated with her. And he tells her, talking to you is like talking to a brick wall, because she's not receiving what he's saying. She's not considering what he's trying to tell her or how he's feeling. So Demonica has no self-awareness, it seems like. So she didn't realize how she was coming across. She starts off, thankfully, she starts off with an apology, but then she follows it with a but. She's like, I'm really sorry if I made you feel, any kind of way, but... And then Olivia steps in and says, an apology with a but is just an excuse. And then Demonica says, well, then I'm not ready to apologize. Like, what the hell is going on between these two people? Like, what is happening here? I just, I don't know. I think Demonica feels like maybe Jack is not that into her because he doesn't say and do the things that she wants him to say or do. That makes her feel better about herself. And so she automatically, has concluded that he must not be that attracted to me, or he must not, really like me that much. And, I don't see that at all in Jack. I think that he is attracted to her. I think that he is into her. But she wants very specific things to make herself feel better. And if he's just not the type of guy that will do that, then she needs to be understanding of that. And if you want him to say more positive things, well, the way you're going about it now, Demonica, is not going to get you those results. I don't know. That's why it's important for her to just to see herself the way she wants to be seen by him. She needs to see herself that way. She needs to see herself as, that attractive, sexy, I got it going on kind of chick. She needs to see herself that way. He cannot make her feel that way. If she doesn't even feel that way within herself. But anyways, I've gone on too long about these people. Thank you so much for joining me in this review. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please don't forget to rate the video. If you like this content, subscribe. If you don't like this content, don't worry about it. But thank you for stopping by anyway, and then I will definitely talk to you later. Bye.